So if you're building or using AI, there's one question that's probably more important than any other. Where did that decision come from? Today, we're going to dig into how you can actually answer that by giving your AI what's basically a family tree. Okay, picture this. A regulator is sitting right across from you, and they ask you that exact question. I mean, everything could be on the line. Your company's reputation, your compliance, it all comes down to your answer. It's such a simple question, but the stakes, they could not be higher. All right, now let's flip it around. Imagine a customer comes to you, maybe someone who was just denied a loan or a job, and they ask this. And under rules like GDPR, they have every right to know. Could you give them a straight, accurate answer right now?
Well, for a whole lot of organizations out there, the honest answer to both of those questions is just an awkward silence. And that gap, that inability to trace an AI's thinking back to its roots, is a huge blind spot. It's a massive risk.
So, to build AI that we can actually stand behind and explain, we need a real solution. And that solution is a concept called data lineage. It's all about creating a verifiable, unbroken trail for every single piece of data flowing through your system. The best way to think about it really is like a family tree. Data lineage maps out the entire life of your data. It's the birth certificate, the report cards, the whole work history, all rolled into one. It shows you every single step of its journey from the moment it was created to its final destination. And that leads us to another really powerful way to think about this, a chain of custody. Just like in a criminal case where lawyers have to prove a piece of evidence was never tampered with, data lineage does the same thing for your AI. It provides that bulletproof, auditable trail that proves the integrity of the whole process. And what's really important is that this chain works in two directions. You've got forward lineage, which helps you see what a piece of data ended up influencing, but then you have backward lineage, which is absolutely key for figuring out what went wrong. It lets you take a weird prediction and trace it all the way back to the source to find out why it happened. You need both, period. Okay, so the concept makes a ton of sense, right? But why is this so incredibly hard to do for AI systems? Well, as we're about to see, the very things that make AI so powerful are also what make tracing its history a massive headache. Yeah, see, AI models aren't just built from some nice, clean spreadsheet. They are fed this complex stew of data from all over the place, databases, APIs, you name it. Then that data gets transformed and all mashed together into these new features, which makes it almost impossible to see where it originally came from. And when you're constantly updating the model, well, trying to track all that by hand is just not going to happen. So to deal with all that complexity, we have to break it down. We can really map the entire journey into 5 main stages. And if we systematically capture the right info at each of these stops, we can build that unbroken chain we've been talking about. Everything kicks off at collection. You need to log where the data came from, of course, but also when you got it. And this is so important. You have to capture the metadata about why you're allowed to use it, the consent flags, the terms of service. This isn't just a technical footnote, it's a core compliance issue. Next up, preparation. This is where the raw data gets cleaned up and put into shape. Every single thing you do, removing weird data points, combining columns, applying a filter, has to be logged. Because if you can't explain exactly how a risk score was calculated from raw inputs, you've already broken the chain. And now we get to the training stage. And honestly, this is the absolute heart of the whole thing. You must create a permanent, unbreakable link that connects a specific version of your model to the exact version of the dataset that trained it. If you don't have this one link, the whole system just falls apart. And the job's not over once the model is built. Oh no. Out in the real world, in deployment and inference, you have to track which version is live and log which model made which prediction. This is what lets you take a decision made today and trace its family tree all the way back to some raw data you collected months or even years ago. Now, this might sound like a whole lot of work just for good engineering hygiene, but here's the thing. This isn't just a best practice anymore. Increasingly, it's the law. Regulators are making data lineage a completely non-negotiable part of AI governance. I mean, just look at the big ones. Under GDPR, the right to be forgotten is pretty much impossible if you can't find every single model that was trained on a person's data. In the EU AI Act, it basically demands that you show your work, that you prove your data governance for any high-risk system. Data lineage is how you do that. And that's really the bottom line here. The days of just saying you have good governance are over. Regulators want to see the receipts. They expect a real, verifiable audit trail, not just a policy document sitting in a folder somewhere. Guesswork just doesn't cut it anymore.
So, as we wrap this up, let's focus on the single most important rule when it comes to data lineage. It's not some feature you can just tack on later. It has to be baked into your AI system's DNA from the very beginning.
You hear this all the time. Teams are under pressure to get a model out the door, and they say, we'll worry about the lineage stuff later, if an auditor asks. This is probably the single most dangerous assumption you can make in the world of MLOps today. Because the hard truth is, you can't. It's impossible. You can't look at a finished, trained model and magically figure out the exact cleaning steps, the code versions and data sources that created it. That history is just gone forever unless you captured it while it was happening. It's like trying to unscramble an egg.
So the big takeaway, the one thing to remember, is this. Data lineage cannot be an afterthought. It has to be a foundational part of how you develop AI, designing for transparency and auditability right from day one.
And that really leaves us with one final thought. We talk so much about building trustworthy AI, but trust requires transparency. It requires being able to tell the story of how and why a decision was made. So the real question is, if you don't know your AI story, how can you or anybody else truly trust it?